Welcome to the Published and Paid podcast, where we share book, business, leadership, and life lessons in 20 minutes or less to help you build a thought leadership brand and business. My name is Jasmine Womack. I'm a former middle school language arts teacher turned seven-figure entrepreneur, and I am glad that you are here. Let's get started. Welcome back to another episode of the Published and Paid podcast. And in this episode, I'm sharing how to plan for your most successful year. Now, I do want to clarify, this particular episode is not about strictly business planning. I will facilitate another episode where I share how I planned for my six-figure years and now how I plan for seven-figure years. But this is overall how to plan for your most successful year when we're talking about spirituality, when we're talking about your fitness, your business, and your family. So one of the things that I do at the end of every year is that I assess where I am versus where I was that same time the previous year. Okay. How are my finances looking? How are my relationships? How is my weight? How is my health? How am I feeling about my body image? Has anything changed? Has anything improved? Or has anything, changed for the not so better? And what? We have to always assess. We need to self-assess where we are versus where we were at a different point in time in our lives, like at those milestones, at those mile markers. So a mile marker for me is every December. I look and I see, okay, where am I now versus this time last year? And how is this different versus how is this year different, or how has this year been different versus the previous 3 years? We've got to take that type of, we've got to take some inventory, because only by taking inventory and actually acknowledging where you are and how you're feeling, that's how you can determine what may have worked, what didn't work, and what type of goals you want to set for yourself for the upcoming year. So it's still January 2025 at the time of this recording. Maybe you haven't finished your strategic planning. Maybe you're still working on your annual planning. Maybe you haven't done your vision board or whatnot, but there is still so much time for you to plan to have a successful year. So determine your goals for the upcoming year, spiritually, fitness and health-wise, business, and family and friends. What are the goals that you want to reach when it comes to your, relationship with God, or just your overall belief system? What are the goals that you plan on reaching as it pertains to your physical health and fitness, your emotional health and fitness and well-being? What about your business? Now, like I said, business planning can be very intense when you're doing it the right way. So I'll do a separate episode on that. Well, what are your goals for your family? What is it that you want to accomplish, and how are you going to go about that? What worked in the past? What didn't work in the past? And what are some of the things that you need to do moving forward, some of the immediate changes that you need to make moving forward in order to achieve the results that you desire? And so someone on Facebook, when I was talking about this on my personal Facebook page, someone asked me, what systems do you use to track your progress? This, that, and the third. And for me, I'm like, I keep things simple. I'm gonna be honest with y'all. I think a lot of people make things a lot more complicated than they have to be. And I definitely am the keep it stupid, simple type of person. I use a journal. I use a calendar. I use my notes. That's what I do. So I'm going to share with you all some specific tools that I use later in this episode. So first, when you are planning for your year, you definitely want to create SMART goals. And if you're not familiar with SMART goals, SMART is a framework that means specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. I was actually sitting down with my children last night. We didn't get a chance to do it over the winter break. And so I am teaching them how to set goals. And so I asked each of them, what are 3 goals that you want to accomplish for yourself by the end of March? Namely March 31st, because that's the end of 4th quarter. I said, I need each of you to choose 3 goals that you want to work at on a consistent basis and that you want to improve or progress or achieve by the end of March. So at first they were giving me some vague responses like, I want to read my Bible more, or I want to work out more. And I said, okay, Zion, well, that sounds great. But when you say that you want to read the Bible more, what does that look like? And so I showed her and I broke down for her how to effectively set goals. And so she said, okay, well, this looks like me reading 2 pages of the Bible 2 times per week. Now, it was kind of late when we did this, so I didn't finish with them, but I told them that today we were going to continue the process and we were actually going to take it a step further with determining the 2 times per week that she was going to choose to do this. Like, what are those days that you're going to do this? Or is it going to be one day and you're going to do it in the morning before school? You're going to do it in the evening before you go to bed, and then we're going to calendar it. So it's not just as simple as saying, oh, I want to do this. No, we've got to put some metrics in there. We've got to be specific with what the goal actual looks like. I also want to encourage you to be sure to set goals that you can accomplish. Like, I think this is so important to not be delusional. Like, if you are 200 pounds, right? And you say that you want to lose 50 pounds, but you want to lose 50 pounds in 7 days. Like, that's just not realistic. And that's a bit delusional. And I think that, yes, there are aggressive goals that you can go after and achieve if you have the resources and or system in place and even or skill set in place to achieve it. But there are some goals that just cannot happen. Like, you're not going to lose 50 pounds in 1 week. You're just not. If you have 0 business idea, the likelihood of you going from 0 business idea to 1 million in 1 year, and I would say this with no, formal skill set, education or training. I'm not saying it's impossible, but the likelihood of that happening is slim to none. So we don't want to lie to ourselves or, set these, just astronomical goals that are going to, make us lose our confidence in ourselves because it doesn't happen. Pace yourself. Like, say if you're 200 pounds, you say you want to lose 50 pounds in a year, which amounts to about 1 pound per week. That's doable. Or even if you say you want to lose 50 pounds in 6 months, that's doable, especially if you adopt a certain diet and you adopt a certain fitness regimen. And of course, that's when you would have to break your goals down into the actionable steps of what it's actually going to require of you in order to reach that goal, right? So that's the part I have to talk to my children about tonight. Like, you set the goal. Now let's talk about and let's map out and plan the exact steps that we are going to take and implement and execute on a consistent basis in order to reach this goal and feel as if we've accomplished it at the end of our 90 days. Okay, so your goals should also align with your personal values and your capacity, because some of us set goals, and I'm ambitious and I love being around ambitious people. I'm ambitious, but I know one thing about ambitious people. Sometimes we can be a little bit too ambitious with setting goals that are beyond the capacity that we currently have to actually do it. So you also, when setting your goals, you also have to look at your capacity. Like, for me, I know that I can lose 50 pounds in a year because I know that I have the capacity to work out 45 minutes to 1 hour per day, 5 to 6 days per week. I have the capacity to do that. Maybe you don't have the capacity to do that. And so maybe your starting point won't be 45 minutes to an hour. Maybe your starting point is going to be 20 minutes a day. Maybe your starting point is going to be 30 minutes a day, 3 times per week. and you're just going to double down on eating clean, maybe, go vegan for a while or go plant-based or, do juice cleanses, throughout the year to accelerate your progress. Like, it's possible. You just have to strategize how you're going to do it. Okay. So after you set your goals, this piggybacks on what I was saying previously. You've got to create a plan of action. So now that you have the goal, break down your goals into actionable steps. What are you actually going to do? And when are you going to do it? This is the part that actually helps you to reach your goals, right? So for instance, if you say that you want to write your book, your thought leadership book in the first quarter of 2025, when you've been struggling for 10 years to write it, not because you're not a great writer, you're actually a great writer, but maybe it's time capacity, maybe you're overthinking the process. What are you going to do to accelerate your progress and reach your goal in 12 weeks that you haven't done in the past 10 years? That could be you hiring a coach. This could be you refusing to edit anything and just focus on getting the words out and focusing on the editing later. This could be you committing to writing 1 chapter per day or writing for 1 hour per day until your book is done. Like, whatever that looks like, you've got to break your goals down into actionable steps. And then you got to take it a step further to calendar your execution time. So it's one thing to break the goals down into actionable steps, but now you've got to determine when you're going to take those steps. So this is where calendars come in. This is where project management apps come in. Now, for me, I use Google Calendar. I use a day designer because I still like to have something physical to write on. And I use a big calendar to map it out. It's a big calendar that I get from FedEx. It's for $4.99. I had gotten this big calendar offline. It was like $50. I got it last year, put it on my wall, never use it. It was just way too huge. I got another one this year, but had it shipped to my former address. And I said, you know what? I am not spending $50 on a calendar. I went right up to FedEx, got me one of those desk calendars for $4.99, and that's doing the trick. I map everything out there so I can see it big, and then I go and put the dates in my day designer in my Google Calendar so that those time blocks are already reserved. Okay. So use calendars to actually map out and calendar in the time that you are going to put towards taking the action, and set deadlines for yourself. Set deadlines for yourself. So like for me, I love challenges. Challenges help to hold me accountable. So as part of my fitness challenge, I'm actually participating in the Peloton 100 Days Challenge. So I have Peloton equipment, and when you log into the system or into the app, then you can sign up for the 100 Days Challenge, which is the first 100 days of 2025. You have to log activity. So that helps to hold me accountable to myself. I'm also a member of a running group, and so all of my activity shows up on Strava. And now I'm also accountable to my running group because they can see the workouts that I'm putting in even when we're not meeting, right? So set your deadlines, and my deadline, my goal is to have some like type of fitness activity 7 days a week. But my fitness goal was to lose 10 to 15 pounds by my next doctor's appointment. Now, if you listen to an earlier podcast episode, I shared about how I gained a lot of weight over the years running my business, how that was combined with thyroid issues and metabolism disruption that contributed to the weight gain and made it very difficult for me to lose weight. And so now that I've had surgery, and now that I'm back on a consistent fitness and wellness plan, I've actually lost over 15 pounds since my event in October. And right now, at the time of this recording, it's January. So I have my next check-in in a few weeks. And my goal was to be down another 10 to 15 pounds down from when I went into December. So that's my goal. So I'm setting deadlines or milestones. If deadlines don't work for you, set milestones for sure so that you can hold yourself accountable and you actually know what you're working towards. So me having this deadline or me having this milestone, that helps to keep me in check when I want to have maybe one too many slices of pizza or eat some, like all my family got popsicles and ice cream. I can't eat any of the ice cream. I had one popsicle, but I literally am not eating any of the ice cream. I'm telling myself that ice cream will be there later. You have a goal to reach. Your check-in is in 4 weeks, right? And so this is how you do it. We've got to become better at holding ourselves accountable for the goals that we want to achieve instead of depending on other people to hold us accountable. That your accountability is an inside job. Sometimes accountability can be external, but it's definitely an inside job. Okay. And of course, sometimes the unexpected happens. And so sometimes you have to adjust plans, but make the adjustment, but don't quit. Don't use the adjustment as a reason to quit. Okay. Having accountability partners can help, but at the end of the day, we have, especially as leaders, we have to be willing to be accountable to ourselves. All right. But I wish you the best. I pray that you have an absolutely phenomenal, powerful, positively explosive year. And hit me on Instagram at the Jasmine Womack. Hit me on YouTube. Send me a message on LinkedIn or an email. We'll put all the links below and let me know what your goals are for this year and how this episode, inspired you to go after it and helped you. All right. Talk to you in the next episode. I'm excited for that. Our next episode, I'll be sharing tips on how to stay disciplined and focused. All right. Peace, love, and impact. Until next time, good people.